That's a very interesting question, a very important one for us to understand. And essentially what we do is we look at the tool itself, and what we can see is a number of sort of deep, shallow, convex divots, and this is what we would call flake scars. Now, we know that this has happened through a percussive event where a person has taken a stone in their hand, called a hammerstone, and they have knocked a chip out of this piece of rock. They have then started radially sort of shaping the tool by knocking other flakes out. Now, these patterns don't happen in nature with such consistency on one particular tool. We can also tell that this is made on a large flake itself, because when a stone is fractured artificially or by a hominid, the actual inside of the flake that peels off preserves a nice sort of concave surface to it. It's typically very homogeneous in terms of its texture. Now, this rock type doesn't lend itself to that, but you can see that there's this sort of almost curved surface here. So that tells us a little bit about production modes. In Acheulian, it's very common. We call this large flaking. Any flake that's taken off over 10 centimeters, that generally leads to what we call a large cutting tool, or an LCT. I would call this a cleaver because of the flat top. We'll get into that in a second. And essentially, the percussive blow has probably come from somewhere in the corner of this large flake here. So we would call this corner struck. So that means that a large boulder was knapped and this flake has come off. And then the maker has then paid some attention to the edges, to the sides of this particular tool, and has knocked some flakes off the sides, is then rotated, and then the body is shaped around with consistent sort of flaking episodes.